The enterprise budgets differ from a whole farm budget where you're trying to figure out what the whole farm is doing. An enterprise budget is really a single crop budget or a single livestock budget. So what it's designed to do is allow a producer to compare between one particular crop and the next one. In this case, we were looking at 10 organic vegetable crops. And it's there to allow the producers to make that comparison. That's its principal function. An enterprise budget is designed, again, to look just at a specific enterprise. And these budgets are general in nature. So they give the producer an idea of what their cost and profit might be at the end of the day. And it's a rough idea to begin with. And the producer then, after they're looking at that and they find a few crops that they are interested in, apply their own numbers to it. And they are designed then to focus on the individual farm, because each farm is different. And after they get their numbers to it, then they have a prediction of, at the end of the day, the end of the growing season, how much money they will spend and how much money they're likely to make. It gets them in the ballpark, and it allows them to make decisions about the various crops. In this case, organic vegetable crops. Right now, the produce market is changing very rapidly. It changed gradually over about a 30-year period, but the pace has accelerated. People are passionately interested in knowing where their food is coming from and the distribution chain of how far away is it? And the closer it is, the more excited the customer is. So from a producer standpoint, tying on to that, it's right here, it's local, it was produced in your state, it was produced in your locality, is a real marketing advantage, and it allows marketing opportunities that frankly weren't there 20 or 30 years ago. And it's just been a building movement. That's where the opportunities are at in produce. Large-scale growers would use the budgets really the same as a smaller grower. And it's difficult to know where you say when is a grower large and when are they small. From a census standpoint, anyone growing $1,000 worth of product and selling it is a farm. And then census says that if it's up to $250,000, it's still a small farm. But a lot of people would argue, no, that's really not small. So is it 30 acres? Is it 2 acres? Is it 500 acres? The county I live in, we have 2 farms growing tomatoes, and those 2 farms have about 30,000 acres of tomatoes. By most definitions, those are big. But what is small and what is big is difficult. In general, the larger a farm, the less they make per pound of produce they put on the market. And that's because some of the costs, if you go through it, rise more rapidly for large farms than small farms. So from a standpoint of putting a pound of product on the market, the really efficient people are the smallest farms. However, they produce so few pounds that it may or may not be enough to really produce enough income. Where on a large farm, they make less per pound, but they produce a lot more pounds. The budgets are designed to be fairly size neutral. So a larger producer could use them, put in his or her own numbers, and make it relevant to their farm. Probably 3 key pieces of advice for a farmer using the budgets would be to start as viewing them as an overview. Look at them all, see which ones are relatively more profitable, which ones require more labor, and take a look at them and see how they kind of fit. And then the real work comes when the producer puts their own numbers to the budgets, and they're designed as that so that you can put your own numbers to it, and at the end of the day come up with a prediction about how that product, how about that vegetable might fit in on your farm. The third piece of advice would be to then add that to a whole farm budget. In other words, how does that enterprise fit with your whole farm? How does it fit in your rotations? How does it fit in your labor scheme? How is it going to change the operation that you are currently running? And do you like that change? Or is that a change that right now you don't want to do? And that's what the budgets are for. They're a peek into the future to allow the farmer to say, is this going to help where I'm headed?